Welcome to EtherLink AI Insights, the podcast where we explore the future of enterprise AI. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into a topic that's going to define competitive advantage in 2026, Agentic AI and multi-agent orchestration. Sam, this feels like a major shift from what we were talking about last year.
Absolutely. If you've been following AI developments, you know 2024 and 2025 were all about finding ways to use large language models. But 2026 is different. It's about moving beyond one big model does everything to coordinated systems where multiple specialized agents work together. The data backs this up. McKinsey reported that organizations using agentic workflows are seeing 23% higher operational efficiency gains than those relying on single-model deployments.
That's a compelling number. But let's unpack what we actually mean by agentic AI. I think a lot of people still confuse this with chatbots or virtual assistants. What's the real difference?
Great question. A chatbot sits there and waits for you to ask it something. An agentic AI system is fundamentally different. It's autonomous. It perceives what's happening in its environment, makes decisions on its own, and takes action toward specific goals with minimal human intervention. Think about it. The agent can break down complex problems, adjust its strategy based on what it learns, and actually get things done without stopping to ask permission at every step.
So if a single agent is powerful, why are we talking so much about multi-agent systems? Wouldn't one really smart agent be easier to manage?
You'd think so, right? But here's what the research shows. Multi-agent workflows actually outperform single large model approaches in real production environments. A Deloitte study of over 150 enterprise implementations found that multi-agent systems achieved 18% better accuracy and, this is the kicker, 31% lower inference costs. The reason is specialization. Instead of building one massive model that tries to do everything, you build smaller, focused agents that excel at specific tasks. A manufacturing quality control system, for instance, might have one agent analyzing images for defects, another investigating root causes, a third handling supplier communication, and a fourth documenting everything. Each is optimized for what it does best.
That makes sense from an efficiency standpoint, but doesn't adding more agents introduce more complexity? How do you keep them from stepping on each other's toes?
That's where the orchestration layer comes in. That's the intelligent coordinator sitting above all your agents, making sure they're working together smoothly, not duplicating effort, not conflicting with each other. It's like a conductor in an orchestra. Get the orchestration right and you actually reduce complexity while gaining capability. Get it wrong and it becomes a mess.
Okay, so assuming a company decides to go down this path, how do they measure whether it's actually working? I imagine traditional AI metrics like accuracy don't tell the whole story anymore.
Not even close. When you're running production agentic systems, accuracy becomes almost meaningless on its own. What actually matters? First, task completion rate. Can your agents resolve complex workflows without escalating to humans? You want that above 85% in production. Second, latency and cost. How fast is the system end-to-end, and what's it costing you per completed task? That matters in dollars and cents, not just percentage points.
Those are tangible business metrics. What else rounds out a proper evaluation?
Safety and compliance are non-negotiable. In regulated industries, you need zero tolerance for hallucinations, policy violations, or regulatory breaches. Then there's adaptability. How does your system perform when it encounters something it hasn't seen before? And finally, interpretability. Can you actually explain to auditors and stakeholders why an agent made a particular decision? This last one is becoming critical with EU AI Act compliance, which is a real thing organizations need to be planning for right now, not later.
Let's talk about that EU AI Act compliance angle for a second, because that seems like it could be a real constraint for enterprises building these systems.
It absolutely is. The EU AI Act is coming, and it requires transparency and explainability, which means you can't just have a black box making decisions. You need to be able to show your work. justify the logic, and prove your system isn't discriminating or creating risks. When you're orchestrating multiple agents, that becomes more complex, not less. You need to think about this during architecture, not after deployment. That's why evaluation frameworks need to be baked in from the start, not added as an afterthought.
So organizations are probably looking at different tools and platforms to build these systems. How do they evaluate which agent SDK or framework actually makes sense for their use case?
Good question. There are several options out there: LangChain, Crew AI, custom solutions, and they all have different trade-offs. You need to think about things like, does it play well with your existing tech stack? Can you actually understand how it's making decisions? Or is it a black box? What are the ongoing costs? How well does it handle the kind of workflows you need to run? And critically, does it support production-grade RAG systems? That's retrieval augmented generation, which is how you make sure agents are working with accurate, current information.
RAG is a big one. Can you explain why that matters for agentic systems?
Absolutely. Without RAG, agents are working only from their training data, which quickly becomes stale. RAG lets you inject fresh context, documents, databases, real-time information, right into the agent's decision-making process. So, an agent answering customer questions can actually pull current product info, pricing, inventory, whatever it needs. That's what takes agentic systems from interesting demos to actually valuable production tools.
And cost optimization comes up a lot. How do enterprises actually reduce costs when running these systems?
There are several levers. First, model selection. You don't always need the biggest, most expensive LLM. Smaller models can handle specific tasks more efficiently. Second, prompt engineering and context management. Third, caching and batch processing where possible. And fourth, monitoring. If you're constantly checking what agents are actually doing and eliminating wasteful operations, you'll catch cost creep early. The Stanford AI Index report found that agentic deployments are growing at 34% year over year, which suggests this is becoming table stakes for competitive enterprises.
That growth rate is striking. So if someone's listening to this and thinking, we need to move in this direction, what's the practical first step?
Start with clarity on your specific problem and business case. Not every workflow needs multi-agent systems. Understand your current constraints, cost, accuracy, compliance requirements. Then build your evaluation framework before you build the system. Know what success actually looks like in your context, and seriously consider working with teams that have deep architectural expertise to avoid costly mistakes later. This is too important to learn by trial and error in production.
That's practical guidance. Sam, anything else people should keep in mind as they're thinking about 2026 and agentic AI?
One thing, this isn't about replacing humans. It's about augmenting human capability with autonomous systems that handle routine, well-defined tasks, so your team can focus on what actually requires human judgment. The companies winning with agentic AI aren't trying to automate everything. They're automating the right things, and they're building for compliance and explainability from day one, not bolting it on later.
Excellent perspective. Listeners, if you want to dive deeper into agentic AI, multi-agent orchestration, RAG systems, and how to evaluate and implement these frameworks for enterprise ROI, head over to EtherLink.ai and find the full article. There's way more technical detail, real-world examples, and specific guidance in there. Sam, thanks for breaking this down.
Thanks for having me, Alex. This is a fascinating space, and I think we're going to see a lot of movement in 2026. Looking forward to seeing how enterprises tackle it.
Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what AI can do for your organization. This is EtherLink AI Insights. Thanks for listening.